Dear friends and colleagues, welcome. Welcome to Tallinn, welcome to Estonia, welcome to Tallinn University. Дорогие друзья, дорогие коллеги, спасибо, что вы приехали. Добро пожаловать в Таллин, добро пожаловать в Эстонию, добро пожаловать в Таллинский университет. For those who arrived yesterday, or have been here yesterday already, you might have seen a military parade in the Estonian streets and a few fighter jets strolling the sky. It was because we celebrated the anniversary of establishing the Republic of Estonia. Now, you might wonder why it is that such a small, peaceful nation like Estonia celebrates its anniversary with a military parade. Well, there are many historic explanations to this, but one of the explanations is also the fact that our dear neighbor from the east has always very painfully been regarding its neighbor states finding their own way and self-determining their future. We unfortunately live through such a situation at the moment as well. It is, I think, we live in those historical time and events at the moment. I remember in one of the conferences we talked about what build up historical events. When can we really say that an event is historical? When we a posteriori can say that the course of history has changed. We don't know if it will change now, but there are certainly very alarming events going on in Ukraine, and to our disappointment, the situation there reminds us the scenes of the Second World War, which we thought will never happen in the heart of Europe again. And here you are. However, from what we know in Estonia now, it is safe to proceed with the conference, and you are safe to be here and travel to Tartu. There is no imminent threat to Estonia at the moment. So we are living through those historical contingencies we've always had. One of them was a long time ago when Juri Lotman came to work in Estonia at the University of Tartu. I'm very proud of the fact that it happened to be Estonia where Juri Lotman was able to work and pursue his cultural semiotics. And I'm proud to include this heritage of his work into the foundations of Estonian culture. We're all proud to do that now. For what he was working on was not only a method for analyzing cultural phenomena, it was a theory of culture as such. But of course, you don't need me to talk to you about the work of Juri Lotman. Let me just tell you that Tallinn University, where you are now, and Tartu University, that you will be visiting next, are the main points in Estonia where the heritage of Juri Lotman is preserved, worked on, and developed. So you're in the right place. I wish you a very successful Congress. I wish you fruitful exchange of ideas, getting acquainted with new interesting colleagues, and stimulating discussions. Let the conference start, and thank you for your attention. Have a good Congress.
So, dear Rector, dear colleagues, dear guests, I'm very confident that Juri Lotman would have been very proud and happy about this Congress. So many scholars across the world gathering in Estonia in the most difficult and unpredictable times to discuss together topics close to his heart and mind and to demonstrate the importance of dialogue, even in a very complicated situation. Of course, our thoughts are with Ukraine. In a way, we are all Ukrainians today. The main idea behind this Congress, titled Juri Lotman Semiosphere, is very simple. It's to pay a tribute to Lotman as one of the greatest minds in the 20th century humanities. But we also want to map the current state of cultural semiotics and Lotmanian studies, and to show the relevance and the potential of his work for today's research and in a great variety of disciplines. So in the name of the organizers, I would like to say how grateful we are that so many of you were interested to participate in this Congress, and even more so that so many of you were able to attend the Congress in person. We received in total more than 320 applications. And today we are glad to announce that in total we have 262 participants in the Congress, or actually 340 if we count in also participants without the paper. 180 of them are participating in person, and 160 are participating in distance, online. In total, 37 countries are represented in this Congress, making this a truly global event. It is not easy to organize a conference of such a scale and in two cities during the times of global pandemic and ultimately of a major geopolitical conflict, to put it mildly. Therefore, I'm most grateful to all partners who have made this Congress possible. I checked today that the first meeting of the organizing committee took place already in October 2019, so more than 2 years ago. And we have been constantly discussing the program, the details, so it has been in preparation for almost 2.5 years. Among our many partners, I would like to thank first and foremost the two universities behind this event, the University of Tartu and Tallinn University. Secondly, I want to thank Estonian Semiotics Association, the true initiator of this Congress and of all the other celebration of Lotman's centenary this year. Special thanks are due also to the Juri Lotman Semiotics Repository in Tallinn University. As any other Congress, also this one owes much to our supporters and sponsors. So let me thank first the Estonian Business and Innovation Agency for their major conference grant. The important support was given also by the Tallinn University Center of Excellence in Intercultural Studies and by the Faculty of Arts and Humanities of the University of Tartu. Last but not least, we are also most grateful to the Tallinn University Conference Center for the very professional and efficient work in making the practical organization of this conference possible. And also many thanks to our volunteers, a great group of students from the University of Tartu and Tallinn, and they will guide you throughout these 4 days into cities. I also have quite a long list of practical information, so please bear with me. First, please wear face mask in all indoor public spaces, including the lecture halls. All disinfectant products are available in all lecture halls and public spaces. The program of each day is available on the public stand next to the maximum lecture hall, so just right after the exit of this lecture hall. We don't provide printed program for each participant. However, a limited number of printed programs is available at the registration desk. The abstract book, very voluminous abstract book, I think more than 200 pages, is also available online on the website of the Congress. I wanted to mention also that Juri Lotman's Semiotics repository has prepared an exhibition of Lotman's life and work, which is situated in the forum of the Astra building, again, just right after the exit, behind the elevators. So please find time to visit the exhibition. As you notice, there is also a possibility to purchase recent books written by Lotman or about Lotman or in relation to his work, and also some books of our plenary speakers. Tonight, as you know, there will be a reception given by the Tallinn City Council. We organized the bus transport to the venue of the reception, so please gather at 6:15 p.m. at the forum of the Astra building, again, the same place here. It will just take place right after the book presentation we will have tonight before. There will be still a little walk, about 1 kilometer, to get to the venue, the Blackhead Guild House. But yeah, we don't have to walk from the university, but the bus will take you up to the old town. All coffee breaks and lunches will be served in the forum of the Astra building, again, on the same floor. I wanted to emphasize also that this is a hybrid conference taking place on-site and online. We have a special platform designed for the conference called Workshop platform. So all of you who will be participating in distance, please pay attention to some instructions I'm now giving to you. So you'll see on your screens the platform. You see that you can select the plenary talks, the sessions, live sessions. You can also participate in distance in the book presentation and the exhibition presentation. So you will have an access in real time to most of the major events of the conference. So you can, in the workshop again, select between sessions you are interested in, and then you will be seeing the program of each panel, each session. And what is very important, that you can also use this workshop platform to ask your questions. So there is a Q&A button you need to use, which will open a window where you can type your question. And this is also important for the moderators of all panels or sessions, that they will take all the questions from the chat, read them aloud, and then the presenters can address or answer the questions. So please be active, use this fantastic tool, Workshop, in order to be really engaged, involved in the conference. And also I might mention that there is a cultural program available on the Workshop. Select the cultural program, and then you have different, mostly films and also virtual other events. For instance, tonight you will be seeing a film made by Mieke Bal, our first plenary speaker of today. So this is the basic information. In case of any problem, please contact our technical team or our practical organizers, but I believe that Workshop is easy to understand. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad to give the floor to a colleague of mine, Eneken Laanes, professor of comparative literature, who will introduce our first keynote speaker. Please, Eneken.
Good morning. It's my great pleasure to introduce Mieke Bal, who is professor at the Amsterdam School of Cultural Analysis at the University of Amsterdam. It's not easy to introduce Mieke Bal because she has done so much, and the list of her achievements is is enormous. Her research interests range from narratology, biblical studies, and art history, to gender, migratory culture, psychoanalysis, and the critique of capitalism. She has published more than 40 books, starting from narratology, the fourth revised edition of which was published in 2017. Then I would also mention Mieke Bal Reader from 2006 that collects her early work. In recent years, she has published a series of monographs on political art, such as Of What One Cannot Speak, on sculpture from 2010, then Endless Andness on abstraction from 2013, and then Thinking in Film on video installation also from 2013. And I would also mention In Medias Res, inside Nalini Malani's Shadow Plays from 2016. Mieke Bal has also been an extremely inspiring teacher. She's the co-founder and was long-time director of Amsterdam School of Cultural Analysis, an institution known for pioneering interdisciplinary study of cultural artifacts and their potential effects. I have personally been able to benefit from vibrant academic culture at ASCA when in mid-2000s, when during my PhD studies, I flew into Amsterdam 4 or 5 times per year to participate in Mieke Bal's famous theory seminar. Mieke Bal has supervised more than 80 PhD theses. From 2005 to 2011, she was Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences professor, and she has also been awarded 5 honorary degrees. Besides being a cultural theorist and critic in the past 15 or so years, she has also acted as a video artist and curator. She has made 18 video documentaries on migratory culture. And what she calls her theoretical fictions include A Long History of Madness, made together with Michelle Williams-Gamaker. And this piece argues for a more humane treatment of psychosis and was exhibited also in Freud Museum in London. Another of these theoretical fictions, Madame B, also with Michelle Williams-Gamaker, was combined with paintings by Edvard Munch in a Munch Museum in Oslo in 2017. And her latest film, It's About Time, Reflections on Urgency, was produced in Poland in 2020. Her talk today also combines art, culture theory, and criticism, and is entitled Reading the World, the Urgency of Semiotic Thinking. And I was told that Mieke's talk will take an hour, so we might not have time for questions, so please reserve them for the coffee break. But now please join me in warmly welcoming Mieke Bal.
Eneken, just 1 minute, and then we'll see the film. I just want to say that the film that you're about to see is the one that Eneken mentioned as made in 2020. It's only 30 minutes, and then I will talk for 30 minutes. It's called an essay film, and I was invited to experiment with that possibility of an essay film. It has 2 different streams, so when you watch it, don't be confused when you go from the one to the other. It's about time, with time as the topic. We talk about time, a theory of time. And it's a call for activism. It's about time. So please watch it now and then I'll talk about it. And I want to welcome you all and also the people who are watching this from a distance. Thank you. Film.
Cassandra! Where are you? You're needed here.
I'm coming!
Opowiadając, wstępuję w śmierć. Im bliżej śmierci jesteś, tym bliższe i wyraźniejsze stają się obrazy z dzieciństwa i młodości. Naszedł mnie obraz, nie potrafiłam go odpędzić.
Nie. Tak, żebyście dali.
A potem przyszło do mnie postanowienie. Wytopione, wyżarzone, wykute i uformowane niczym włócznia. Pozostanę świadkiem. Chociażby nie było już nikogo, kto by zażądał ode mnie świadectwa. Bo to ciągle było i ciągle jest doświadczenie, kiedy ja widzę, ja widziałam, bo widziałam, że ta godzina przyniesie na nas zgubę. Czas stanął w miejscu. Nikomu bym tego nie życzyła. To wszystko, ta Troja mojego dzieciństwa jest już tylko w mojej głowie, ale odbuduję ją tam. Wiernie, póki jeszcze jest czas, nie zapomnę o żadnym szczególe, o żadnym kamieniu, o żadnym promieniu słońca, o żadnym uśmiechu, ani o żadnej łzie. Zachowam ją w sobie wiernie, dopóki jeszcze jest czas. Nauczyłam się widzieć rzeczy, których nie ma i to była trudna lekcja, ale ból to jedyne, co jest prawdziwe i to, jak ktoś podchodzi do bólu, mówi nam więcej o przeszłości niż cokolwiek innego. Kiedy pozbyłam się arogancji wobec bólu? Kiedy zobaczyłam wojnę, oczywiście. Kiedy zobaczyłam strach ludzi. Co mam zrobić z tym darem prorokowania?
Cassandra! Gdzie jesteś? Jesteś tu potrzebna! Nigdy o czasie.
O co mu chodzi? To, że się spóźniłam? Czy że nigdy nie mówię o czasie? Jeżeli chodzi o to pierwsze, to on powinien się wstydzić, bo to on zawsze się spóźnia. Zwłaszcza jeżeli chodzi o to drugie. A jeżeli o to drugie, to proszę bardzo. Jestem gotowa.
Jak już wiesz, moja córko, będziesz mówiła prawdę, ale nikt ci nie uwierzy.
No to tu chodzi o mówienie? Pogubiłam się, ja próbuję myśleć, ale Ale jakimi środkami my w ogóle myślimy?
Co cię tak martwi, że się pogubiłaś?
No, doprawdy nie wiem, dlaczego Pantos tak utkwił mi w głowie. Może to jakieś słowo związane z jego imieniem, które próbuje uwolnić się z głębi, do których nie wstąpiłam? A może to jest obraz z przyszłości, obraz, który uda mi się uchwycić, jeśli tylko pozwolę mojej uwadze iść tam, gdzie chcę.
Ale to martwisz się o ludzi czy o środki, których używasz?
Ale tych dwóch nie da się od siebie oddzielić i nie można oddzielić. Być kimś, być człowiekiem to znaczy używać słów i obrazów do tego, żeby być i nie być samotnym. Ostatnią rzeczą w moim życiu będzie obraz. Słowa umierają dużo szybciej niż obrazy. Obrazy pędzą mi przez zmęczoną głowę, a słowa nie są w stanie za nimi nadążyć. Kształty rozbłyskują niczym płonące race.
Nie marudź, już ci powiedziałem. Nikt ci nie uwierzy. Nieważne, co powiesz i co zobaczysz.
Przeżyje mnie moja wiara, że właściwe zdanie, czyli właśnie słowo potrafi ująć, a nawet wywołać każde zdarzenie. Słowa. Wszystko, co starałam się przekazać, było i jest parafrazą tego doświadczenia. Dla Greków nie ma innej alternatywy niż dobro i zło, życie i śmierć, wojna i pokój, przyjaciel i wróg. Oni myślą inaczej niż my.
Któregoś wieczoru słyszałem, jak Parys powiedział: kapłanko, nie pozwalasz, aby moi ludzie odpłacili się tym samym.
I odpowiedziałam nie, bo Pantos uświadomił mi, że słowa wywołują materialne znaczenie. Nie działa jak skurcz. Tak przynosiło rozluźnienie. Słowa mają takie same działanie jak obrazy. Zobacz na to. To, czego nie da się powąchać, zobaczyć, dotknąć, nie istnieje. A zatem, która z tych dwóch igieł sosny istnieje, a która nie? A może obie? A może żadna?
To właściwie co zobaczyłaś, kiedy tam stałaś?
Kiedy tamtego wieczoru stałam na murze, znów ujrzałam słońce, księżyc, gwiazdy, drzewa oliwne, które srebrzyły się na wietrze. Purpurowo-metaliczny połysk morza o zachodzie słońca. I na nieruchomym obrazie poruszały się kształty.
Czy ostatecznie chodzi o patrzenie? Nie o słowa?
Kiedy żyjemy, nie trzeba i nie musimy ich od siebie rozdzielać. Nasz umysł łączy je i miesza cały czas. Niczego nie kochałam bardziej niż poczucie humoru Arizbę. To był niezapomniany widok, jej potężne ciało przykucnięte na zgniłym pniu drzewa przed jaskinią, gdy kijem biła dla nas czas.
Co? Biła czas? Kijem?
Tak. I to był właśnie początek naszych problemów. To bolało, jakbym miała atak i w końcu go dostałam. Więc to był atak. I na krótką chwilę moje życie podzieliło się na czas przed ataku i po nim. Ta chronologia wkrótce straciła ważność, jak niemal wszystkie następne. Jak ta nieważność chronologii wpływa na ludzką obsesję na punkcie historii? Na przykład historii obrazów, historii sztuki. Pre i post, przed i po mogą wejść ze sobą w dialog, jak ja i ty. Czy to niedorzeczna myśl? I czy to w ogóle ma jakieś znaczenie?
Cytowanie, analizowanie czy nowe odczytanie Caravaggia dzisiaj na zawsze zmienia jego dzieło. Jak każda forma reprezentacji, sztuka nieuchronnie angażuje się w to, co przyszło przed nią. A to zaangażowanie ma charakter aktywnego przepracowania. To ono uściśla, co i jak postrzega nasze spojrzenie. I dlatego praca wykonana przez obrazy późniejsze unicestwia te dawniejsze w poprzednim kształcie, tworząc nowe wersje starych obrazów w ich miejsce. Przykładem tego procesu jest zaangażowanie współczesnej kultury w przeszłość, która ma doniosłe implikacje dla tego, w jaki sposób wytwarzamy zarówno historię, jak i kulturę w czasach współczesnych.
Nie ma co się dziwić, że dostałaś ataku, kiedy Arizby biła czas kijem. Czy robiła to po to, żeby go zniszczyć? Tak jak zrobił to ten artysta z RPA, który neguje istnienie czasu? A może nadawała mu rytm? Z pewnością wiesz, że czas ma o wiele potężniejszą moc, niż by wskazywała na to chronologia. Pewien mądry człowiek napisał o tym, jak trudno mieć przeszłość w pamięci. Przeszłość można uchwycić tylko jako obraz, który w chwili swej rozpoznawalności właśnie rozbłyskuje na wieczne pożegnanie.
Ale dlaczego rozpoznanie jest tak ważne? Przecież to właśnie teraz świat zajęty jest niszczeniem samego siebie.
Właśnie dlatego. Właśnie dlatego. W tym samym tekście napisał on również, dlaczego przeszłość jest ważna. Każdemu obrazowi przeszłości, w którym teraźniejszość nie rozpoznała się jako ta, o którą mu chodziło, grozi bezpowrotne zniknięcie.
A więc to nie tylko przeszłość wpływa na teraźniejszość, ale i odwrotnie. Muszę z tym uważać, bo inaczej znowu dostanę ataku. Nasza pozycja w teraźniejszości ściąga na nas odpowiedzialność, by zachować obrazy przeszłości, aby stały się aktualne w teraźniejszości. Nazwałabym to teorią ugruntowaną. Przestanę słowem teoria na prawo i lewo, ale wiesz, co to znaczy? Patrzenie, przenikanie wzrokiem. I stąd właśnie wynika jej ugruntowanie w dwóch płaszczyznach czasowych.
Tak, to też ma wpływ na nasze akty pamięci. Pamięć nie zdarza się tak po prostu. Tworzysz ją albo nie. Nawet sny pociągają za sobą odpowiedzialność, bo sny nie tyle odzyskują obrazy, co tworzą je.
Masz rację. Pamiętam i czuję, jak ów rytm przyszedł do mnie. Ja tworzę to wspomnienie w tym momencie. Już na zawsze drżenie mego ciała, na zawsze opór chłodnej ściany, której dotykało. Życie przeciw śmierci, siła mojej matki przeciw mej słabości. Na zawsze niewolnica trzymająca moją głowę i na zawsze gorzki brązowy sok, który Partena, moja niania, wlewała mi do gardła. Na zawsze głęboki sen i to, co się śniło. I czułam, jak rytm przechodzi na mnie. Gdy w moim ciele rozpoczął się taniec, gdy już nic nie mogło mi pomóc, poczułam pokusę, by porzucić samą siebie i uciec z czasu. Rytm powiedział, że moje stopy wolą uciec z czasu, a ja chciałam ulec mu całkowicie. Ale teraz zrozumiałam, co ten mądry mężczyzna miał na myśli. I muszę coś zrobić. Muszę działać.
Ale nie możemy działać w imię teraźniejszości, a co dopiero przyszłości, bez zgody Rady. Ludzi, którzy reprezentują lud. To właśnie demokracja.
Słaba ta pomoc. Przecież odkąd pamiętam, Rada nie miała czasu na sprawy, które naprawdę się liczą. Co innego artyści i myśliciele, którzy martwią się o przyszłość. Oni go mają. Później właśnie za to nienawidzili mnie najbardziej, że nie uległam ich katastrofalnym, pobożnym życzeniom. To nie urodzenie uczyniło mnie Trojanką, lecz historie opowiadane na dworskich dziedzińcach. Pałac milczenia.
Wiele nauczyłam się, obserwując różne rodzaje milczenia. Dopiero potem nauczyłam się milczeć sama. To bardzo użyteczna broń. Ciekawe, co z tym pałacem milczenia zrobiliby artyści. O, a co to za potwór? A teraz widzę. Byłam w błędzie, myślałam, że w takim pałacu znajdę barokowe rzeźby. Ale ten łeb wygląda naprawdę przerażająco. Jakby zjadał, a jednocześnie żygał tymi mniejszymi postaciami.
Czy jesteś taki jak ja, gdy rodziłam dziecko? To rozdzielenie, wielość, walka dwóch sił, które starły się w moim ciele. Nie mogłam przestać tworzyć szaleństwa, ta pulsująca gardziel, która mnie wypluła, potem na powrót wessała mnie do swojego wnętrza. Chmara postaci, głównie putti, tych barokowych aniołków, ale również posążków ze starożytnego Egiptu, z państwa Majów, kultur greckich, a do tego gigantyczny klucz. Zaludniają strumień powietrza, które wydycha ta gigantyczna głowa. Choć gdy pomyśleć w kategoriach wymienności, które zarazem wdycha. Tylko szaleństwo stało pomiędzy mną a nieznośnym bólem, które te dwa by we mnie wywołały. W każdym szaleństwie jest coś komicznego. Wszyscy dotarliście do granic mojego pola widzenia. Staliście się cieniami, pozbawionymi realności. Przyimek pomiędzy zakłada istnienie wielu wymiarów. Gigantyczna ludzka głowa i maleńkie aniołki. Wielu płaszczyzn czasowych pomiędzy współczesnością a barokiem i wielu nastrojów. Obrzydliwy widok tej, jak się zdaje, wymiotującej głowy i ruchliwe, to uśmiechnięte, to rozgniewane aniołki o gładkiej skórze. Strumień drobnych postaci wydobywających się z ust tej głowy zaludnia ten ruch pomiędzy, ruch w obie strony. Gdy ikony przeszłości wpadają do tych ust, wracają do teraźniejszości, a tym samym mogą symbolizować niedorzeczną historię pre-post, w której przeszłość i teraźniejszość wymieniają się miejscami, spotykają się jedna z drugą, zamiast zmierzać w jednym kierunku, jak w wizji poety T.S. Eliota.
Jest bieg czasu. Przeszłość i teraźniejszość jak dwukierunkowa ulica. A jednocześnie zaprzeczenie bez ruchu tej pozornie nieruchomej rzeźby.
Co masz na myśli? To ona się porusza, czy nie?
Tak. Drży w swoim własnym tempie.
Co więcej, jest jeszcze ten uporczywie niejednoznaczny kolor, który kojarzy się z malarstwem. Monochromatyczny brąz materialności, ale jednak ze śladami błękitu. Ten błękit przywodzi na myśl patynę, jaką brąz pokrywa się z czasem, ale zarazem to niewłaściwy kolor. Patyna byłaby zielonkawa, a jako kolor byłaby niemalże niewidzialnym znakiem czasu, dowodem długiego trwania rzeźby. Ten błękit ożywia rzeźbę, a zarazem ją jednoczy. Wydobywa ją z trwania w czasie za pomocą tego ostentacyjnie niewłaściwego koloru. Ponadto przywodzi na myśl niebo, wprowadzając nieskończoność wszechświata w przestrzeń wystawy, która nagle wydaje się tak ciasna.
Myślisz, że taki był zamysł? Żeby pokazać, jakie to wszystko jest obrzydliwe, tak jak zrobił to ten artysta?
Tak, przecież to jest autoportret. Ale coś odpychającego, co wchodzi do środka? No, porusza się w dwie strony, jakby oddychało, co zresztą sugeruje tytuł. Wiesz, myślę, że jest wdzięczny. Bo dostąpił najwyższego przywileju możliwego. Wpleść wiązkę przyszłości w teraźniejszość, która zajmuje cały czas. Ale to, czy to sprawi, że zaczniemy coś robić, zależy od nas. I tu wkrada się klątwa Apolla i niszczy wszystko. Przecież nikt mi nie uwierzy. Może faktycznie zaraziłam się bełkotem mężczyzn z Rady. To trzeba dzielić ludzi na dwie kategorie. Na tych, na których będę mogła polegać w obliczu przyszłej zagłady i na tych, na których nie.
Chodź ze mną. Zabierzmy cię z tego ponurego i niebezpiecznego miejsca.
To teraz nie mogę uwierzyć, że nawet nie zauważyłam, że byłam więźniem. Działałam pod przymusem. Straciłam całą wolę życia. Nie chciałam śpiewać, nie chciałam chodzić, nie chciałam oddychać. Ten niemiły mi obowiązek zjadł całą moją wolę życia. Nie mogę z tobą pójść. Przepraszam. Nie chodzi o przeszłość, chodzi o przyszłość.
Ale ja nie mam wyboru. Nowi władcy ustanowią swoje prawa i wobec tych, którzy przetrwają. Muszę ocalić kilkaset osób przed śmiercią.
A ja nie mogę kochać bohatera. Nie chcę patrzeć, jak robią z ciebie pomnik. Dobrze wiesz, że w starciu z czasem, który potrzebuje bohaterów, nie mamy szans. Nasz ból będzie nam o sobie przypominał. Wiesz, pomiędzy zabijaniem a byciem zabijanym jest jeszcze jedna opcja. Życie. I możesz mi wierzyć lub nie, ale ja jestem za życiem.
Przepraszam?
Tak?
Przepraszam, wie pan, co się stało z tym pomnikiem? To kiedyś był silny mężczyzna, a teraz wygląda, jakby był głodny i smutny.
Szczerze mówiąc nie mam pojęcia, no ale faktycznie nie wygląda jak kulturysta.
Muskularny mężczyzna z przyszłości teraz jest głodującą kobietą z teraźniejszości. Ale czy ona musi głodować, bo nie myśli? Czy może jej melancholia ma charakter bardziej ogólny i rozszerza się również na mężczyzn?
Zgudasz ode mnie coraz dalej. Ale czy wiesz, dokąd zmierzasz?
Tak, do przyszłości. Żeby się nią zająć. Mój bagaż to przestroga mądrego człowieka, o którym mówił Eneasz. Obrazy z przyszłości to zadanie dla teraźniejszości, które niesiemy do przyszłości. Kiedy postradałam moją nienawiść? Brak mi jej, tej nieubłaganej, zapiekłej nienawiści. I wiem, że jedno imię mogłoby ją zbudzić, ale wolę jeszcze o nim nie myśleć. Gdybym potrafiła to imię wymazać, nie tylko z mojej, z pamięci wszystkich ludzi, którzy pozostaną przy życiu. Gdybym potrafiła je usunąć z naszych umysłów, wypalić, moje życie nie byłoby daremne. Achilles. Z góry zakładał to, co miał jeszcze stworzyć. Wojnę. Gdy dotarł już tak daleko, mógł swą wojnę uznać za normalny stan i uznać, że istnieje tylko jedna droga wyjścia. Zwycięstwo. Dlatego właśnie nie mogę tu zostać. Muszę wyruszyć w przyszłość, bo tu, w teraźniejszości, nikt mi nie wierzy. A co jeśli w niewoli nadal mam swobodę wyrażania siebie? Drodzy wrogowie, kim jestem, by widzieć was nie tylko jako zwycięzców, a nie tych, którzy będą żyli dalej? Jako tych, którzy muszą żyć, by to, co nazywano życiem, mogło trwać. Biedni zwycięzcy, którzy muszą żyć dalej dla tych wszystkich ludzi, których zabili.
Seria obrazów przebiega przez moją zmęczoną głowę, a słowa nie są w stanie za nią nadążyć. Kształty rozbłyskują się w mojej głowie niczym płonące race. Już czas. Przyszłość już tu jest. It's about time. The future is now.
Thank you. I realize the film is not so easy to grasp in one round, but you may see it again on my website. There's the first film under the rubric films. And then you can see it again to take it in. Okay. So, with the current precarious state of the world, the post-Brexit turmoil, and the militant aggression at the Ukraine border, it seems unproductive or even hazardous to look especially to Europe if we seek to understand how meaning comes about in specific semiospheres, contexts. Europe, instead, seems to be embedded in the Deleuze's Sahara aesthetics. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. A constantly changing, mobile form, non-form, the instability of which carries political risks of severance rather than aesthetic binding. Europe is no longer a reliable unity, if it ever has been. Now, this raises the question of the borders of the semiosphere, the delimitation of the cultural area within which meaning-making follows certain conventions that make meaning transmittable, or rather shareable, as we say now with an Americanism. This is the primary point of semiotics. The concept of semiosphere is, in this sense, a key term, since it acknowledges the non-universality of meaning-making as well as its social-cultural nature. In a very useful volume occasioned by this 100th anniversary of Juri Lotman that you can actually purchase here, I was thrilled to see it, Peter Torop opens his chapter on the concept of semiosphere with the statement that this concept, quote, marks Lotman's move towards a dynamic cultural analysis. And he continues writing that, quote, the concept has traveled from one terminological field to another. And he ends his introductory paragraph thus: semiosphere marks the complementarity of disciplines studying culture, the movement towards the creation of general theory of culture and flexible methodology. I couldn't believe to read all these things in one paragraph in Peter's fantastic chapter. Now, in addition to everything else that I can learn from that rich book, in these opening sentences, 3 terms speak to me in particular: cultural analysis, the concept has traveled, and flexible methodology. It's like my self-portrait. The first of these, cultural analysis, as distinct from the sort of Americanizing cultural studies, formed the grounding of a research institute I co-founded at the Amsterdam School at the University of Amsterdam in 1994. I can't believe it's over 25 years. The insistence on analysis is crucial and congenial to Lotman's commitment to close reading. The second underlies my book on traveling concepts in the humanities. And the third statement has been a long-time directive for my work, both research and teaching. Boundaries between disciplines have never satisfied me and always hindered the depth of thinking and analysis. And this circumscribes my personal academic semiosphere. And there I find Juri Lotman. I don't even remember exactly if I learned any of these concepts or all 3 primarily from Lotman. I suppose I did, or in contrast, recognizing these issues in his work, endeared it him to me because I was preoccupied with them. But no, I must have read Lotman at the same time probably that I developed these ideas. Now, my academic work has always been semiotic inspired, and the 3 angles Torop mentions in that first paragraph explain why. Lotman insisted on close analysis, and he kept doing that, and I admire that really, as a more detailed engagement than what cultural studies propagated. Hence, in the title of our research institute, the term cultural analysis. The fact that concepts and conceptual thinking travel, adapting to disciplinary, geographical, and historical shifts in different semiospheres, was particularly relevant for Lotman in his Russian-European spatial and politically transforming temporal context. And although he remained primarily focused on literature, that art form was never isolated from the wider context in which he worked. When I discovered the idea of semiotics, now decennia ago, my excitement about it concerned the integration of philosophy, thinking, and close analysis, doing, as well as the resistance against media essentialism and disciplinary dogma with their methodological strictures. Semiotics offers the possibilities and tools to facilitate that integration, so that my passion for both, with teaching as an important third, could ease in as an activity that made sense. To use a semiotically relevant phrase, please take it literally as well as figuratively. On the side of philosophy, I'm sorry there are only men here, but their work is important. On the side of philosophy, in addition to especially Spinoza, Bergson, and Deleuze, Theodor Adorno always accompanied my thinking. And that attachment is due to the integration that he exemplifies of socio-political wisdom with philosophical rigor. And recently, just 1 week before the worldwide lockdown of spring 2020, I encountered that double integration once more when I was invited to make this film in the famous film school in Łódź. I had less than 1 week to shoot, edit, and finalize the film in a semi-foreign semiosphere, working with actors, cinematographers, sound engineers, and editors, of whom I did not understand the language at all. And that was actually an advantage. Fortunately, English was, as usual, a helpful tool. Now, the word essay, in its meaning of trying, in turn, in its Anglo-Saxon two meanings of attempting and challenging, it's trying, was appropriate. From beginning to end, and the invitation was to make an essay film because they were trying to sort of circumscribe that possibility. From beginning to end, ambiguity and its productive side effects and affects accompanied the process, and trying as it was, the activity turned out, in fact, highly exciting and satisfactory. And ambiguity, with the resulting instability of meaning, was crucial. So I put ambiguity at the heart of the concept of the semiosphere, as I have learned Lotman to use it. This is what makes it, as well as semiotic practice, both stable in the sense of delimited and unstable in the sense of changing. Ambiguity is crucial to meaning making, and specific semiospheres can become prominent as the meanings shift and multiply. Through ambiguity, we can also be alerted to something like an international semiosphere. And to make the case for the beneficial effect of ambiguity, I will first primarily consider the effect of one little sign, a simple one much used in Europe, which changed everything in the film I made, the exclamation mark. It's not a word, it's not a letter, it's not part of an alphabet, nor a signifier carrying a signified in the line of Saussure. It is neither iconic nor indexical in Peirce's semiotics, nor can it be considered part of Lotman's secondary modeling systems, because it's not secondary and it does not translate language into an artistic text. Yet, it is undeniably something that is like a sign, and as such, it is quite powerful. That's why I'm showing here the poster in Spain. It changes meanings, intonation, and interaction with addressees. Thanks to the exclamation mark, there are simultaneously two titles to the film. As I said before, two topics also, each carrying their own meaning, semio-situation, and effects. The first, it's about time, ending on a full stop, denoting the subject or theme of the film, what the film is about. And this is a kind of third-person discourse, the impersonal language use, where the object, the about, is absent from the communication. So people talk about it. This thematic center concerns my ongoing interest in an argument for revising our sense of history by turning the linearity of chronology into a mutual movement of directionality between past and present. present and past too. I've argued for that temporal mutuality by proposing the term preposterous, and you have seen this in the film being quoted. The term is ambiguous with a self-ironic wink, alluding to the way I have been scolded for writing about art in an allegedly ahistorical way, which is untrue, considered preposterous. That's preposterous. In the sense of absurd, where I simply, literally, sought to make the prepositions pre and post dialogic interactive. But the small sign that changes everything in the film's title is the exclamation mark, I. Exclamation mark. The title is, in the final version, It's About Time, with the subtitle Reflections on Urgency, appealing to a typical phrase current in the Anglo-Saxon Semiosphere. It's about time we do something. Something must happen. This is the rallying cry, the rallying call for climate activism. And as such, it's a first, second person in discourse. It's an interaction in a personal, interactive language situation. The small sign completely transforms the meaning and the communicative situation. I'm sorry, I need a napkin to blow my nose. That exclamation mark also changes the way we would pronounce the title, becoming a sound figure. I'm sorry, but somehow this happens when I talk. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Raise our voices and even imaginatively raise a warning finger with the transformation of meaning and of address as a consequence. It is what turns a film on an intellectual issue into a political one, with the result of integrating the two. This integrative transformation through ambiguity is for me the most important aspect of semiotics over disciplinary fields, its relevance. And there, the concept that Lotman developed of semiosphere has been completely crucial. The kind of film I was asked to experiment with was called essay film. And this is not a genre. It concerns the essay as form, as Adorno called it, a form of thought alive that is partial in the two senses of that ambiguous word, subjective and fragmented. I'll come back to this. Thinking as social, performative, and always unfinished, as dialogic. Rather than taking a fixed semiotic theory as my point of departure, as a filmmaker, I had to start in practice. And given that time constraint I just sketched, even more. From the essay film and its needs in search of suitable concepts, techniques, and creative ideas. And this is also part of semiosis. Semiosis, not easily boxed in within any of Lotman's sequence, language, text, culture, semiosphere, it's in all. To begin with, the film needed a story in order to hold the viewer's attention. And as a film, it needed audiovisuality. For developing the script, which I wrote before traveling to Poland, of course, and encountering the participants, I took on the mythical figure of Cassandra. Quoting or considering or re-envisioning Caravaggio now changes his work forever. We cannot see it as it was. And the people from the past never saw it as we see it now. Hence, the work performed by later images obliterates the older images as they were before that intervention and creates new versions of old images instead. This process is exemplified by an engagement of contemporary culture with the past that has important implications for the ways we conceive of both history and culture in the present. Cassandra could foresee the future, but in an antique Me Too case, when she declined to sleep with him, was cursed by Apollo, who gave her the gift, to never be believed. With Cassandra's story, retold by Christa Wolf in an updated preposterous version from 1983, I try to figure, I'll come back to that term, the rallying call implied in the English phrase, it's about time. The verb to figure stands for the effort to make a figural shape for the thoughts on the indifference of people, towards the imminent disaster, ecological disaster of the world. The exclamation mark of the title indicates that side of the film's title. But if Adorno so enigmatically but inspiringly called the essay a form, I had to find the corresponding form that would integrate story and image, audiovisuality and language. And this is where semiospheres allow a development of a semiosis that does that. For my purposes, along with Lotman's key concept, I was compelled to intellectual cross the Atlantic and acknowledging that he has become a worldwide semiotic master, no longer confined to the American semiosphere, call on peers. Especially through Umberto Eco's work, peers became semiospherically European. At first sight, Pierce's concept of the icon relied for me too much on resemblance, and his index could work but lacked the visuality that cinema needs. And symbol would remain too close to convention, whereas innovation was my goal. Instead, I brought in French philosopher Jean-François Lyotard's concept of the figural. And for those of you who are doing PhDs, he did this as his PhD. This concept is not particularly semiotic, it's not specifically in terminology, although it fits very well in semiotic thinking. The philosopher came up with that concept in his attempt, his essay, to overcome the tenacious word-image opposition. He argued for language as more dynamic than it is usually seen, turning it into a force, a movement. It's like a semiospherically specific way of making you literate about other sides of language. As such, he argued, language is closer to the Freudian unconscious than, as it is laid out in the Interpretation of Dreams, 1900, than to any Saussure-derived structuralist conception of it. Dynamism as opposed to structural stability. And the importance of visuality in Freud's theory of interpretation of dreams with its semiotic implications has been seen but not appreciated enough as semiotic, whereas it is crucial for his thinking, including especially force in his concept of language. Lyotard described meaning as sense in terms that include affect, sensation, and intuition, movement, and also spatiality. For him, language and the meanings it produces is primarily dynamic. And this corresponds with Lotman's flexible methodology as invoked in Torop's opening paragraph. Force, for Lyotard, is inherent in language, and it is, and here I'm quoting David Roderick's paraphrases, nothing other than the energy that folds and wrinkles the text and makes of it an aesthetic work, a difference that is a form, and if it expresses, it is because movement resides within it as a force that overturns the table of significations with a seism that makes sense. Now, I find that word seism particularly powerful in this revision of what language is and does. And this is where Lotman knew how to grasp what happens in the language of literature. These words affiliate language with specifically cinematic language based as on the etymological sense of movement, kinetic. Both a great diversity of languages and the cinematic as an informational tool, a mode of communication, and an art form are prominent in the semiosphere. I think I have skipped a slide. Yes, this is the slide I should have shown you much earlier. I've also found it remarkable that Adorno's extensive writings on literature, 2 volumes, begin with an essay on the essay, thus giving that category, genre, whatever you call it, pride of place in literature, before poetry, prose, and theater. And it is a genre, not genre, an unfinished something, unexpectedly as form. I interpret that term in Adorno's essay title as congenial with Lotman's sense of structure as a secondary modeling system. Adorno does not define his key concept, form, however. What form is, if none, what is form? What kind of form can this be, if none can be fixed? In line with Deleuze's Sahara aesthetic, I decided to give the film the formless and unfixable form of short fragments, which could be seen with the link between the full stop third-person discourse and the exclamation mark as the sign of second personhood in my film. Adorno devoted a large part of his essay on the essay as form to bridging the gaps that binary oppositions tend to dig, which he did by means of nuancing. And this passage that I'm quoting here characterizes the philosophical tone, a nuance that goes well with Adorno's use of form. The essay allows for the consciousness of non-identity without expressing it directly. It is radical in its non-radicalism, in refraining from any reduction to a principle, in its accentuation of the partial against the total, in its fragmentary character. Now, along with the series that ends on the rejection of reductionism, of these words of wisdom, partial and fragmentary, I mentioned them before, in particular, seems to bring us closer to what an essay can be or do. Both words resist the idea of the total, of the encompassing whole, but also in its shadow, the totalitarianism that seems to have many places of the current world in its grip. I don't need to remind you what I'm thinking of. Now, Adorno contrasts binary thinking with an endorsement of ambiguity, as I do in this presentation. Now, in addition to the opposition of totality, partial means also subjective, being partial to something, in the sense of acknowledging that what the essayist brings forward is not an objective, factual truth, but instead lays close to her or his heart. And this accords well with semiotic thinking, where the acknowledgement of the indispensable role of the act of interpretation is always a key element. Swedish media scholar Lars Ellerström called this cognitive import, the transfer of the message, sign, media product, to use a media unspecific term, to the perceiver, who transforms it into their own semiospheric habits, because habit is very much part of the semiosphere. For interpretation is social, responding to what others have advanced on the media product under consideration. Excuse me. I need a little bit of oil for the machine. Partiality also means passionate, in that the holder of the view brought forward cares about it. I'm partial to it. And then there is the element of rational, since partiality also encompasses the wish to persuade. And this can only be done through rational argumentation. As for fragmentary, this accords well with the non-total and the non-totalitarian. And I like to keep those two together. Please keep these two words, partial and fragmentary, in mind with their multiple meanings together, foregrounding even more strongly that nothing can be whole or finished. Following Adorno's thinking, my semiotic reasoning here is geared towards ambiguity as a key to cultural complexity, and that's where I find Lotman's work again. And this is always bound to particularities of semiospheres and therefore undermines any ambition of universalism. Now, the word essay, trying. In addition to trying meaning taxing, difficult, the word trying means attempting to say something for which no ready-made literary form on genre exists as yet. And this is the Sahara aspect of the semiosphere. And that's where Lotman comes in with this transformation to the artistic text. And genre is not where we should look to understand the essay. then, but rather keeping the word in movement, explore the word name itself. The modesty the word includes is crucial. Trying is attempting, groping towards, fumbling, even floundering. That modesty itself acknowledges that nothing is perfect nor finished, and also that no one does anything alone. That making something is collective and social and always in process. Hence the importance of teaching, of course. And this accords well with Lotman's view of semiosis as social. It also has temporal consequences, since it intimates the idea that things, such as artworks, or in the case at hand, films, are never completed. They are, as the Deleuzian saying has it, in becoming, since trying is never over. Excuse me. There is one other aspect of the essay that I consider as fundamental as modesty, because it is as social as it is semiotic, one that derives from it. And that is reciprocity, mutuality, reversibility, dialogue, not monologue, not the past, but the past in the present. Lotman is here. And this is the socially crucial aspect of relationality. Whether or not essayists are alone when writing their essays, they are already responding to other ideas that are around. An essay is bi- or multilateral. And this is the dialogic nature of thought and of the subsequent trying. And in this sense, the essay or as form, as Adorno called it, is a model of thinking in general. Its figuration, its form is exemplary. And this describes quite accurately the teaching situation. Now, in my search, my attempt for semiotic forms that could make the thoughts I wanted to propose and convey, the ambiguity had to remain intact. Hence, the about and the rallying cry had to stay paired, even intertwined. And in the end, you see that they are intertwined. The characters had to figure meanings as signs, no matter of what Peircean category exactly is the principal one. Iconicity, indexicality, and symbolicity are always merged in any sign use, albeit in different proportions. And in each semiosphere, those proportions may shift. The primary issue is the interaction between the figures, which is where narrativity comes in. I figured the about idea through the enactment of the tableau vivant of Cassandra's lover, Aeneas, as Caravaggio's John the Baptist, with an allegedly abstract, but in fact highly sensuous contemporary painting by American painter David Reed, shifting over it, and by interactions of Cassandra with two paintings by South African Dutch painter Ina van Zyl, which precariously balance on the sharp and impossible distinction between reality and fiction, as well as semiotic utterances and real life. Now, in both instances, the characters become figures, figurations of ideas. The living body of the actor playing Aeneas and the photocopy of the 17th century painting, we didn't take it out of the museum, of course, a still of a still, intermediately produces the tableau vivant. And I've had this in mind for ages to do this, and now I had the opportunity. Then doing a history lesson in which Cassandra, now acting as a teacher, explains preposterous history to her lover student, who is dressed up as a Walter Benjamin lookalike. I'm sure you saw that. The media whirl around, and the Times and everything. In a discussion with his teacher, Aeneas quotes the passage from Benjamin's fifth thesis on the philosophy of history, which has been a deeply influential statement for my thinking on history. And I would really recommend that you take that into account every time you do something historical. Every image of the past that is not recognized by the present as one of its own concerns threatens to disappear irretrievably. Now, that is for me, like, that designs history. Theory here, philosophy, participates as a medium in itself. Needless to say, this Benjamin quote supports the idea of preposterous history. To preserve the past, it must be made actual, it must be made relevant in the present and have relevance there. And this is why we are doing a conference on the legacy of Lotman, not because he's dead and in the past, but because he's here now with us. It is after this quoting reading with a stage copy of the Caravaggio painting with the tableau vivant just seen still in the perceiver's mind that this is literally and concretely turned into an intermedial image when the painting by David Reed shifts over it. For a moment almost, but not quite, this contemporary painting hides the older work, or pretext. This is one of my puns, pretext. In the same vein, figuration here is a more precise and specific term for a particular kind of intermedial sign. And these figures are also needed as controversial, slightly polemically entangled couple of lovers. Cassandra, in one of these cases, also acts as the teacher, the sort of pedantic mistress with the bun in her head, and slightly pedantically explaining the concept of preposterous history. And Aeneas, allegedly her student, responds to her teaching in the words that I just quoted with the looks of Walter Benjamin. And these two figures are thus themselves figurations of preposterous history as its personifications. Now, if you wish to call them in that capacity signs, figurations, or models, that's up to you. That doesn't bother me if you choose another term. It depends on your theoretical semiotic framework. But with this essay film and the unpacking of some of its ambiguous moments, I have essayed to bring a Lotman-inspired sense of close analysis and broad contextualization. The close reading in the semiosphere, through the concept of semiosphere, to a teachable form of semiotic thinking. And I hope that in combination with the film, this works for you. And the sense that thinking is social, I have further made the topic of another film that I had proposed for the cultural program, and that you can see, I think, tonight, of this celebration of Juri Lotman's and his work. And that is the film Reasonable Doubt on the socially handicapped, somewhat mad, traumatized master of thinking, René Descartes. So I hope you will find time to see that too. Thank you for your attention.
Places Lotman that places. So thank you, Mieke, for this talk that placed Lotman among the other 20th century thinkers on time, image, and ambiguity. As already said, now it's time for a coffee break, and so approach Mieke for further discussions of the talk. Thank you so much.
Okay.